Hafna, and welcome back to Healthy Living. I'm here at IHP with Podiatrist Dr. Mina. She's going to give us some tips for the upcoming Guam International Marathon, which is only 5 weeks away on April 10. So, Doc, what can you tell us about the importance of foot health for runners?
So runners oftentimes have a lot of complaints, especially when it comes to running long distances, sprinting, or whatever it may be, whatever type of runner that they are. Oftentimes I hear a lot of plantar fasciitis, a lot of heel pain. And heel pain is usually presented as first steps in the morning are the most painful, and especially during running and running long distances. I usually tell my runners that first thing they have to choose really good shoes, supportive shoes such as Asics. New Balance is also a really good running shoe that I suggest to my runners. Something that will really support their arch, has a good comfortable sole, a good thick sole, and that will propulse them forward as they run throughout their gait stance. I tell a lot of my runners as well to stretch before and after running. Not just doing the typical runner stretch against the wall, but also taking a towel, the bottom of the foot, pulling the foot up towards their knee. And also icing is very good after their runs as well too, because oftentimes runners get things called shin splints, and it's pain in front of the leg that causes inflammation in that area. And I usually recommend some over-the-counter anti-inflammatories along with icing regimens.
Okay, so let's start off with the pain in the heel that you mentioned earlier. So this is very common with a lot of distance runners. What causes this, and how can you prevent it?
So what causes plantar fasciitis, which is called the heel pain, is a tightness of the heel cord. Everybody has a band at the bottom of their foot that creates that arch that we have in our foot. And when that band is too tight, that's when you get that pain in the heel. That's why I tell my runners to stretch daily, usually about 5 times a day. It really only takes about 3 to 5 minutes to do. You stretch before your runs and after your runs, and that usually will prevent that heel pain from coming back.
All right, I know you also mentioned the importance of wearing good supportive shoes. I actually learned this the hard way when I ran my very first half marathon. I was doing it all wrong and wore the wrong shoes. So now I'm actually using Asics. But what I found out is that I actually overpronate. So can you tell us a little bit about overpronating and underpronating, and what runners need to do to address that?
So overpronation is actually a term called flat foot. And usually people know that they're flat-footed when they see that their arch touches the ground when they stand. That actually gets worse and it's more pronounced when you run. So overpronators or flat foot runners are people that should really invest in a very good pair of shoes. Ones that are very supportive in the arch, like I said earlier with the Asics and the New Balance, they have really good arch supports in them. Also, there's an option to purchase over-the-counter or custom orthotics, and those are inserts that you can place into any shoe type, especially your running shoes, that can support the arch for you if your shoe doesn't already have that into it.
So most people might know that they overpronate, but if they're not really sure, would the best course of action just to visit a podiatrist like yourself?
Absolutely. If you just visit a foot doctor, they can evaluate you and they'll be able to determine whether or not you are an overpronator, you have a flat foot, or you have other issues going on that's causing pain in your feet.
And I think that's something a lot of people don't really think about when they run, say, their first long race, a half marathon or a 10K, but it makes a really big difference, and just a small change like that could really impact your running. So another thing I wanted to touch on was, you mentioned this earlier, shin splints. And so I've had a really bad problem with this in the past. I don't get it so much lately. But when you're building on those miles, maybe you're running your first half and you're getting up there, you're 10 miles or so, sometimes it can just come every time you run. So what causes shin splints, and how can you prevent it?
So the cause of shin splints is an inflammation of the front of the leg. Usually a lot of people that are too tight, their tendons, their ligaments, their everything in their muscles, and they're too tight and they're not warm enough. They don't warm up enough during prior to runs or even just working out. Shoe gear plays a really important role when it comes to preventing shin splints. If your shoes are too flat and they don't have enough support, you will feel a lot more of that impact when you hit the ground. So that will in turn cause a lot of inflammation in the front of your legs, and that causes a lot of pain. So I tell my patients that have shin splints, or my patients that are very active people that do a lot of high impact activities, to make sure, number one, they get a good pair of shoes, something that can absorb the impact and their weight essentially at the same time too. And making sure that not only are they supportive, but also they're warming up prior to their activities. So stretching, once again, stretching prior to your activities and after will prevent that.
Okay, let's say you're already pretty far into your training, the marathon and half marathon. There's also a 5K and 10K. It's only 5 weeks away. So if you're getting these shin splints every single run, and it's really painful, should you continue to run through that, or should you cut down on your miles? What's your recommendation?
That's a good question. So I recommend that you cut it down. Your body's obviously telling you that it's in pain, it's hurting, so you should slow down. The body is a great telltale of what you should be doing. If you're feeling a lot more pain, then you need to ease up on your workouts. Maybe only running half a mile to 2 miles, whatever it may be, at whatever distance runner that you are that day, and then slowly increasing it until you're feeling more comfortable.
All right, well, thanks so much, Dr. Mina. Don't forget, if you have any questions, you can visit her here at IHP. For all those training, don't forget to post your pictures online with the hashtag GIM training for our social media promo. Here's this week's winner.
Your community calendar is brought to you by Taco Bell. Whether it's your first meal or your fourth meal, we've got you covered. Taco Bell, live Más.